let's talk about systems, or rather, let's have an AI listen to what I'm thinking and tell me what it thinks about that.
You know, it's funny, we talk about systems all the time, right? Governments, economies, even our own bodies. But I feel like we rarely actually stop and think about those like inherent quirks they all seem to share.
Yeah.
Like those little glitches in the code. It makes you wonder if they're not glitches at all. And your notes about like the flawed nature of systems, honestly, it's been kind of messing with my head ever since. In a good way.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear it.
Like you really got me thinking, and you even had that quote.
Oh, yeah.
There's something like, everything has its flaw, for instance. Ambition gets things done, but can create corruption and greed. It's so true. Like, ambition, yeah, it gets you places, but at what cost, right?
It's such a good point. That whole tension between a system's strengths and its weaknesses, it's kind of unavoidable, isn't it? Like, we can set out to create systems with the best intentions, try to achieve very specific goals, and it always seems like, it's like your quote suggests, trade-off. There's always a trade-off.
It's the worst. Like trying to design a car that's like incredibly fast, but also like completely indestructible.
Right.
You can't have both. Something's got to give.
Some's got to give. And honestly, even if you could build that car,
Yeah.
who knows what new problems it would create, right?
Oh, totally.
Like, think about the human immune system. It's incredible.
Yeah.
A fortress, right, protecting us from all these nasty diseases. That same system, that same protective mechanism can turn against us. Autoimmune disorders.
Ugh, the worst.
Right. Or even something like democracy, which, love it or hate it, it's a system designed to give power to the people, right?
Yeah.
That very structure, as great as it can be, can also lead to gridlock and make it vulnerable to manipulation. It's a constant balancing act.
Ugh, I know.
Every system, I think, no matter how well-intentioned, is going to have these inherent vulnerabilities. It's not about trying to build a perfect system.
Because they don't exist.
Exactly. It's more about recognizing those flaws from the beginning and making informed choices about which trade-offs we're willing to accept.
Which is tough. It's so tough, and it's so easy to get tripped up, especially, thinking about your notes about feedback lag. Oh, man. That is something that drives me bonkers in everyday life.
Oh, tell me about it. Feedback lag is everywhere,
Yeah.
and it is incredibly frustrating.
The worst.
You mentioned the example of, getting a warning about your mental capacity while driving.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Imagine your car telling you you're running low on focus only after you've already missed your exit because you were distracted.
Yes. Been there. It's like the warning comes with a built-in time machine or something.
Right.
Arriving a little too late to be helpful.
Exactly. And this whole thing, right, this delay between our actions and their consequences, it plays out on much larger scales too. Climate change is a perfect example. We are seeing the very real, very devastating effects of emissions from decades ago. That's feedback lag in action. And it's scary.
It's terrifying, because what do we even do at that point?
Well, I think that's where long-term thinking comes in,
Okay.
right? And proactive measures. We can't wait for the warning light to flash red when the damage is already done.
Yeah, it's like we need to develop like a sixth sense for anticipating those lags. But then on top of that, even when we're trying to be proactive, we have these internal battles going on too. You brought up the concept of conflicting prompts within a system.
Yes.
And I swear, reading your notes, I was like, this is my life. Like, my brain is having a civil war sometimes.
Oh, for sure.
Seriously.
It's such a common experience.
Yeah.
It's that classic battle between, you want that instant gratification, but you also have these long-term goals.
Right.
And they're not always aligned.
Never. And the instant gratification is so much easier.
It is. It's so much easier. And it's, like your notes mentioned, struggling to focus on work when there are distractions.
The story of my life.
Which, hello, welcome to being human in the 21st century. But this is a perfect example of those conflicting prompts playing out in our daily lives. Our poor prefrontal cortex, that's the part of our brain that's all about planning, decision-making, being rational.
Trying to be an adult.
Exactly. It's constantly getting hijacked by the limbic system, which is all about give me the good stuff, avoid the bad, pleasure now.
It's a party up in there.
Right. And it's not just about willpower, right? It's actually way more complicated than that.
Oh, tell me about it.
Our limbic system, that instant gratification center, gets a nice little boost of dopamine, which is the feel-good neurotransmitter, every time we give in to those immediate desires. So it's like our brains are kind of wired to make this an unfair fight.
Ugh, rigged game. See, I need to remember this isn't just me being lazy, it's my brain.
Well, there's a combination of factors at play
Yeah,
for sure, right?
yeah. So then how do we work with that?
Well, I think it's less about working with it and more about understanding the terrain of the game.
Right.
Like you wouldn't go into a boxing match without understanding, how to throw a punch.
Okay, that's fair.
So it's not just a matter of willpower. It's about understanding the neurochemical processes at play in our brains and then developing strategies to manage those conflicting prompts more effectively.
Okay, so we've got to outsmart our own systems. I can get behind that.
It's a lifelong endeavor. But then, sometimes even when we think we've got a handle on those internal battles, those conflicting prompts, it can still be crazy hard to pinpoint what's causing a problem in the first place.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about it.
And that's where your point about fuzzy attribution comes in.
Yes. Fuzzy attribution. The bane of my existence.
I know. It's so frustrating. It's that reality where it's really difficult to isolate one single cause for an effect, especially in complex systems, which, let's be honest, most systems are.
Most definitely.
And you had that great example in your notes, right?
Yeah.
About feeling completely lousy after work.
Oh, yeah. Story of my life.
And it's like, what exactly caused that feeling? Was it that meeting that went on way too long, the deadlines, or maybe it was like, one too many cups of coffee? It's often impossible to say for sure.
It's the worst. And then you just blame it all on work, even if work wasn't the problem.
Exactly.
Oh,
And
man.
it can be tough to tease apart, right?
It's like trying to untangle a giant knot of Christmas lights. Like, there's a problem somewhere in the massive wires.
There's a culprit.
But good luck finding the exact source.
Such a good analogy. And I mean, this isn't just a personal dilemma. Think about doctors trying to diagnose a patient with multiple underlying health conditions.
Right.
Or economists trying to pinpoint the exact cause of a recession. It's never just one thing, is it?
Right.
Fuzzy attribution kind of forces us to embrace complexity and avoid those simplistic explanations, which can be very tempting.
Simplistic is easier, but probably wrong.
Right.
But I think what really fascinates me, and maybe even worries me a bit, is this idea you mentioned about systems becoming self-perpetuating.
Oh,
Even when they're no longer serving their intended purpose.
yeah.
It's kind of chilling when you think about it.
It is.
It's like that saying, right? If you create a cog, it has to spin.
Yes. That's it. Perfectly.
Yeah.
And we actually call that the inertia of systems.
Yeah.
Right. It's like systems get a momentum of their own.
Yeah.
And so people within a system, they often get very incentivized to keep those wheels turning, to keep doing what they're doing, even if the overall machine itself is broken.
It's true. No one wants to rock the boat.
Right.
Or be the one to say, hey, I think this is broken.
Right. It's job security in a way, isn't it?
Totally.
But it can be detrimental in the long run.
Yeah.
Think about, bureaucracy.
Oh, don't even get me started.
Everyone's got your role to play, their procedures, and their reasons for doing things a certain way.
It's like that old joke about the DMV. They're not there to help you. They're there to keep the line moving.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's not always about laziness or malice even. People within a system, they can become so incredibly focused on their specific tasks, on their cogs, that they completely lose sight of the bigger picture.
Laser focus. But maybe on the wrong thing.
Exactly. And that's why it is so important. Now, I can't emphasize this enough. It's so important to regularly step back, look at the system you're in, and ask that question. Is this system still achieving what it was designed to do?
Take a step back. Look at the big picture. Ask the hard questions.
Yeah.
Easier said than done, but important.
Right.
Oh, man. This whole deep dive has been like a masterclass in recognizing those hidden patterns, the potential pitfalls within, pretty much everything.
Right.
I'm walking away with a renewed appreciation for how complex everything really is, and honestly, a slightly heightened fear of donuts. I mean, they're delicious, but they're dangerous,
They really are. They're a perfect example of those conflicting prompts we were talking about.
They really are, aren't they? It's all starting to make so much sense.
It's about recognizing those patterns everywhere.
Okay, so knowledge is power. Even if it comes with a side of donut-induced existential dread.
It's all about balance. Man.
That's true. That's true. Okay, I'm going to go contemplate all of this with a slightly less delicious, but maybe slightly less dangerous snack.
Sounds like a good plan.
Okay, until next time. Keep asking those tough questions, because who knows what other fascinating insights are out there just waiting to be discovered, right?
Exactly. That's what these deep dives are all about.
Challenge accepted. I can't wait to dive into the next set of notes.
Send them my way.
Oh, I will. Until then, everyone keep those cogs turning, but, maybe give them a little inspection every now and then, too. You never know what you might find.
Words of wisdom. Okay, until next time.
Bye.